Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be going over wave trends and the EMR spectrum, the electromagnetic spectrum. So first with wave trends, you have to know the variables of the wave. So we have wavelength, frequency, and energy. So I also have written the symbols, so in another video where I'll talk about wave calculations, you have to know what these symbols mean. So wavelength is, I like to call it upside down Y or just Y, but it is a Greek letter called lambda. So it looks like that. Frequency is obviously F and energy is E. So you have to know the relationship between three of these. So wavelength is obviously or always indirectly related to the rest of the variables. So basically you have energy and frequency. They are directly related, so they both increase or they both decrease at the same time. And then wavelength is opposite. It's like the odd one out. So if I were to ask you what happens to the wavelength if I increase the frequency. So since wavelength is opposite or indirect, wavelength would decrease when frequency increases. All right. So here's what an example question you would see, like in words. So what happens to the energy, let's talk about energy, if I double the frequency? So the variables that you are dealing with here is energy versus frequency. So since we just talked about energy and frequency are both direct, so they both increase or they both decrease, they are the same. So basically frequency also, the energy, excuse me, that we're asking about energy here. So energy would also double if I double the frequency. All right, so if I were to actually ask you what happens to the wavelength if I double the frequency, so wavelength is indirect. So I would think of, okay, what's the inverse or what's the opposite of double? It would be halved. So wavelength would half if I double the frequency. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the wave trends. Now I want to spend more time on the electromagnetic spectrum or the EMR spectrum. So this is the order of the spectrum here from radio, microwave, infrared, visible, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma. So this is in increasing energy. So radio is the lowest energy and gamma has the highest energy. And then if we think about the wave trend here, so since energy is low here, frequency is also low. And then if energy is high here, frequency is also high here. And then when we think about wavelength, again, wavelength is opposite. I'm going to write it up here. Wavelength increases here. So wavelength is the longest here, as you can see my attempt of the wave. And then over here in the gamma side, wavelength decreases. It gets shorter. All right, so we're going to use this to do ranking of different radiation types. And now you do have to know the order and the names of each of these radiation types, and there is an acronym that can help you remember them. Now you can use any acronym that works for you, but this is basically a foolproof method of remembering the EMR spectrum. So each letter represents another word. So red, Martians, invade, Venus, using X-ray. So X-ray is X-ray, that's easy. X-ray guns. All right. So red, Martians, invade Venus using X-ray guns. Or If you don't want to write all that, you can just remember in your head the whole phrase, and then I would just write it as red Martians invade Venus using X-ray guns. So that's the easiest way to do it. And then you do a little wave here, just something that you can write real quick on your quiz or test, so you have something to remember by. And also remember the trends here for the energy, frequency, and wavelength. All right. And when I zoom in now to visible light, so when we zoom, so visible light tends to turn visible. It's the it's the only radiation type that we can actually see with our eyes. So that's actually visible with our eyes. So these are all the colors that we see. And the colors that we see is Roy G. Biv, so that's the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And indigo is just between blue and violet. So the trend is the same. So red is this trend here. Violet is this trend here. So think of it as this whole line here. All right. So we're going to use this spectrum to do some ranking. So I'm going to give you some random radiation type in out of order, and you're going to put it in order depending on what I ask you. So rank the following, and I'm just going to do A, B, C, different examples. So this part, let's do rank the following. UV, I'm just going to abbreviate from ultraviolet. Microwave, gamma, and visible. So I jumbled it up, and I'm going to, based on increasing energy. So you're going to rank the following in increasing energy. So with increasing energy, E goes up, right? So based on the spectrum here, E goes up this way. So I'm going to go from left to right. So based on what I'm given here in this question, so the most left that I see is microwave. So microwave goes first, the lowest energy. And then what's next that goes in the spectrum is visible. And then I hit ultraviolet, so UV. And then the most energy, the highest energy is gamma. So this is the correct way of ranking the EMR spectrum based on energy. Okay. Alright, so let's do this one when it comes to wavelength, because wavelength is actually the tricky one based on wording. So let's do X-ray, infrared, yellow light, so I'm adding a color here, and radio. And I'm going to do based on increasing wavelength. So the only thing tricky about increasing, decreasing wavelength is that whenever you think increasing, you always think, oh, I'm going this way, I'm going this way. But wavelength, again, wavelength is always opposite. So with increasing wavelength, that means the wavelength is getting longer, and it gets longer to the left. And as you can see here with the trend, up arrow, wavelength. So I'm going from right to left. So we're going to look at our question here. What goes first? So based on our spectrum here, X-ray goes first. It's the shortest wavelength of the bunch. And then when you see yellow light or any color, it's always part of visible. So yellow light is part of visible, so that's going to go next. Yellow light. And then I've got infrared. And then last but not least, I've got radio with the longest wavelength. Alright, next I'm going to have you rank the colors of the Roy G. Biv. So I'm going to give you violet, yellow, blue, and orange. And I want you to rank it based on decreasing frequency. So the trend of this is the same. All right, so decreasing frequency, frequency goes down. So based on the spectrum here, frequency goes down towards the left. So I'm going to go to Roy G. Biv, go from violet to red to rank it. So when I rank it from the right, violet goes first, and then blue, and then yellow, and then orange. So that's how you rank the Roy G. Biv. Alright, so I'm going to give you one more example. I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and I want you to try this on your own. I'm going to add colors, all of that. So I'm going to give you microwave, ultraviolet, gamma, infrared. And I'm going to give this to you in increasing frequency. So I want you to try this on your own. Let me zoom out just a little bit. Here's a spectrum. I'm going to freeze and have you try this by yourself, and then I'll unfreeze for you to check your work. Again, increasing frequency of the spectrum in these 4 radiation types. Alright, this should be your answer. Microwave, infrared, ultraviolet, gamma. So increasing frequency, again, it increases towards the right. So I'm going from left to right, and this is the order that you should get. All right. So the hard part is really knowing the spectrum. You should know like how to like use it. It's all about memorizing it and knowing how the trends work. So again, what I would do is, know the red Martians invade Venus, know the order, and do this big wave. And instead of writing this whole acronym, because it is kind of a pain, just write the letters like R, M, I, V, U, X, G, if you can memorize that as well. And then you quickly do, okay, energy frequency goes down here, energy frequency goes up here, wavelength gets longer here, wavelength gets shorter here. So that's a good Spark Notes version of it. All right, so that is pretty much it for the EMR spectrum and also the wave trends. So I hope this helped. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.